How do I talk to my kids about my emotional instability while I'm trying to recover from betrayal trauma? And I'm recently divorced, thinking about stepping back into the dating world and wondering what the key elements I should be looking at to make sure that I don't make the same mistakes I made the first time around.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists.
We're not afraid of your questions.
So bring it. All right, you guys, before we answer those questions, I want to share with you a review. And thank you so much for leaving reviews. They make us feel good because they usually say nice things. Not all the time.
Not always.
Believe me, I've gotten some reviews that don't sometimes. But also it's just a good way to kind of share our message. And when people read the things that other people are saying, they want to listen more. So this review says, as a beloved listener, I have many issues that I'm working with a therapist on since October. There's childhood issues that have led me to my infidelities with my marriage. Brannon has helped me learn many things, but boundaries are something I've never had and still learning how to work. Thanks for all the work and the content provided for people like me. Charge on. So
That's awesome.
Yep. Good job. Keep it going. Work that recovery.
Keep working.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great. Yeah. I just wanted to touch on based on a couple of things before we get into the questions, Brannon. First is just really grateful that we had Glenn on our show last week. Got some really good feedback from that, and just wanted to throw another shout out to Glenn and say thank you for coming on. You don't know, if you're listening, Glenn, you don't know how many people have reached out and said, I totally relate. And I'm so grateful that someone had the courage to come on and talk about those things. So You guys, if you've got questions, bring your questions. And if you want to come on the show, but you want to keep your anonymity, we can make sure that you keep your anonymity as well. But we'd love to have you as live callers if you've got questions, because it just makes the whole experience better for everybody.
So what you can do is go to brannonpatrick.com and you can submit a form there to be on the show. You can email, what's the email, Tyler?
Go to therapybrothers.com and you can submit a form there as well, or you can email connect@lovestrong.com and also send a question there, and we can get you on. We can make it so that you can just have your voice with no other identifying factors if you're wanting to do something anonymous.
And I challenge you, bring some of the questions that you don't think we can answer. Let us give it a shot. And some of the questions, some of life's challenges are very complex, and we're ready to tackle them. And Tyler and I have seen a lot in our day. We're getting old. Tyler's had 2 hip replacements, so
I'm an old man.
He's an old man, and my knee went out this week. So one of the beauties of that aging that we're going through is we got some wisdom. So throw your questions past us so that we can.
Even if we don't have the right answer, we'll have a great discussion on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So great. Well, should we jump into the questions today?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Here's our first one. I am dealing with betrayal trauma from years of infidelity. Since the day I found out the truth, I've been struggling personally as well as in the relationship. I have 3 kids, ages 14, 12, and 9, and they often see me emotional or see me choose not to participate because I'm not up for it. My question is, what do I tell my kids? How do I help them understand why I'm feeling so emotional sometimes, and also reassure them that I'll be okay? What should that conversation look like?
Do you want to start, Tyler? Or?
This is a common question. I think we get this a lot with people who are going through betrayal trauma, because it's like any form of trauma really is, it's just emotionally kind of gutting, right? Like there's that roller coaster that goes on. You can't sometimes tell what's going to trigger off the next response as to being totally emotionally drained or totally anxious or totally angry. And unfortunately, part of the process when you've got kids is that, sometimes those emotions are so hard to manage that either you're totally depleted or those emotions come out sideways on the people that we love the most. And then you feel bad about it. And it's a really tough process, but
Right.
it's a good question.
Yeah. The last part of her question was, how am I going to let them know that I'm going to be okay? And um, I don't know the context of what's going on here, so I can't really speak to that. But I think sometimes there's this belief that if I have betrayal trauma, or I've been cheated on, then I'm going to be an emotional wreck, and I'm going to be that for a long, long time, and if not forever, right? And um, I'm not saying this to invalidate the process of healing and the pain that you feel when you are betrayed, because that's real, and that's actually just the thing is if you step into that, you process it, you work through it, you don't have to be an emotional wreck forever. And there's many women that I work with, that I've seen, real life people who are some of the most healthy people that I know on an emotional, spiritual level. They know how to trust their gut. They're really tied into their intuition. They know how to roll with things, with life when they come and they're hard, and so and a lot of that health that they have is because of the horrible thing that's happened to them. So I just want to say that, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Brannon, yeah, and we'll maybe come back to the question, because there's a few other things I want to say. But as you're talking, I'm sure that there's some listeners listening right now, going like, okay, that's all well and good, but if I find myself in the pit of despair right now, like, what what is it what are the steps that I take to get myself to that place you're describing, where you're,
right.
connected, and where you're feeling like you kind of can manage your own emotions, and you're not at the mercy of any little thing that might trigger something off.
Well, so here's another thing: is you have a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and I think there can be a lot of parent guilt. There can be like, man, I need to be healthy. Life needs to be vibrant and hopeful, but it's not, because I'm grieving here and I'm hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that just to understand that um, it's okay to be sad and feeling lonely and in despair at times, and you can still be an excellent mother um, who is feeling those things. You're actually modeling to your kids that life is going to come with some ups and some downs, and if you have a depressing day, rather than slapping that fake smile on and just trudging through and just feeling horrible all day, do your self-care and allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. That's actually good for you. Now your kids might be a little confused. Why is mom feeling that? What's actually happening? I don't know. And so I think that's the first step, is to just acknowledge and accept right where you're at, and have some compassion for right where you're at. Right.
Right. Exactly. And I would add on to that a little bit, Brandon, that not only do you pause and meet yourself right where you're at, but you can also make it transparent, depending on how much you want to share the details, but you can make it transparent that you're having a bad day, and that as a result, you can teach your kids about the principles of self-care and reaching out and connecting to other people, and even grounding. I mean, for overcoming betrayal trauma, one of the first places you're going to go is to learn how to ground yourself through your sensations and through mindfulness. And those skills themselves are going to be invaluable skills that you'll teach to your children to help them manage their own emotions. And so I would make at least the learning and the process that you're going through part of the things that you're talking to your kids about and teaching them on a daily basis, um,
Yeah.
because you're only going to help their emotional health as a result of having to go through some of these things yourself.
Yeah.
Now it is it's really frustrating to feel like you want to be the one who's involved and invested and showing up, and through no fault of your own, you're having a day where you can't show up. And that's really frustrating. So meeting yourself with compassion first and saying, it's okay, like, it's not fair, I don't have to like it, but it's okay, is a big deal. Inside this question, there was another question that wasn't asked, but I think is just as important. And at the end of the question, she said, how do I help them know that I'm going to be okay?
Right.
The other part of the question that a kid is feeling is they're asking, am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
They're needing some reassurance to say, hey, I can see that mom's not quite right or dad's not quite right. Are they, what's going to happen? Are they going to get divorced? Is something going to break apart? Am I doing something wrong? And so being able to make sure that you can reassure your kids by speaking to them about your emotions and reassuring them that none of this is their fault. Kids are by nature, they're very self-centered. They have to be. The world
Right.
revolves around them. And so you've got to make sure that you help them understand that none of what's going on for you has to do with them, and that you're doing the best you can, that you've got them in mind, and that they're going to be taken care of, and that you're going to make the best decisions you can to
But
help them through.
I think that there's this kind of fallacy and this mistake that a lot of parents make, which is I want to present to my kids that that everything's going to be okay. And I think when we do that, we actually are presenting to our kids some of our fears about the nature of life. And I think teaching them that everything's going to be, it's a paradox. Teaching them that everything's going to be okay is done by facing the fact that we don't know everything that's going to happen. We don't know the future. I'll do some things with my kids, like my older daughter. I'll say things like, "Yeah, like I'm just saving up for your therapy because I'm screwing you up so much," you know. So
Right.
I'm kind of joking, like, "Yeah, you know, like there's problems," and I'll tell her like, "Hey, I'm far from the perfect dad, you know, but I do the best that I can." Um, every night at the dinner table, we'll go around and have each of the kids share with us their biggest failure of the day, because we want them to know, like, hey, you can fail and you're gonna fail and things are gonna go bad. And so the message that I'm trying to teach my kids is there's gonna be pain, things are gonna go bad, but what I'm trying to model to them while I'm talking openly about those things is that that's okay, that it's okay that everything's not gonna be okay. Do
That's
you see the paradox there?
that's exactly the way that you inoculate your child from being wiped out by pain and misery and suffering, is by teaching them that life is going to offer it to them, and that they're going to have the tools and the skills and the abilities to ride those things and to navigate it. You know, I was talking to my wife just this last week because of all this stuff that's just going on in our world. You know, the world has lost its mind, Brannon. Like, you know, like,
Maybe just our
but
country, but
it's like, holy smokes, you know, and we all have our own feelings about those things. But I was just talking to my wife about those things, and a conversation came up, and we were talking back and forth, like, what are we going to do to protect our kids from all of this stuff? And we're thinking, like, maybe we'll move into the deep hills of Montana and disappear until the world catches
yeah,
us there, or, you know,
uh-huh.
like, and
Go
we
hide from it all.
we finally came to the conclusion that looking at our children, they they were built they were built for the world that we're in. They were
Yeah.
built to be able to face and overcome challenges, and that we would be doing them a massive disservice if we didn't, you know, try to lead them into some of those places, you know, in a guided way where they could learn and grow and develop some confidence. You know,
Yeah.
I joke with my kids all the time. I tell them they've lived such sheltered lives that I have to, like, try to manufacture challenges for them, you know.
So
And
on
then
one
they're
hand, life is so hard, and on the other hand, it's way too easy.
yeah, they like roll their eyes at me, and I'm like, well, you know, the truth is that if we want them to be able to grow up into like good, well functioning adults, we shouldn't shy away from those things. We should actually teach them, and the best way we can teach them is by example.
Yeah.
So
But
kind
the example is what you were talking about, what I was just talking about, and I think it really relates to the answer to this question, which is, you know, what do I say to my kids is one thing. What do I model to my kids is another, and that's the most important thing. And if you can model, um, you know, having boundaries enough to create some space for you to grieve, to process, and to heal, then you're mothering in an excellent way. Um, and so and to get specific, 14-year-old, 12-year-old, 9-year-old, every child is so different. That 9-year-old might be really mature, and that 12-year-old might be really immature, right? And so to know exactly what to say to which child at what time is kind of difficult. There's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. But what I would say is, with your kids, be open with them about who you really are and what you're actually feeling. So you don't need to go get into the details of what daddy did or this or that. But you can be honest with, hey, mom's grieving because I'm sad, because some things that have happened, between me and your dad. So I'm sad today. I'm going to have a mommy sad day. And that's what's happening. Right. So does that make sense, Tyler?
It makes total sense to me. That was kind of going to be the follow-up question that I was going to ask you too. And you're kind of starting to hit this a little bit is, okay, so yeah, we can demonstrate how to be resilient, but what about the disclosure to your children about what's happening between you and, you and their father? And I think you're starting to lead into it, that there isn't really one really good answer. A lot of it depends on your family style. A lot of it depends on the maturity of your children, but it is okay to speak in general terms about the fact that, hey, me and your dad are having a little bit of a rough time right now, and we're trying to work things through, and I'm trying to
Kids
take
know
care
it.
of myself.
They
They know
feel
it.
it.
They
Yeah.
feel it. Like they feel it so deeply that if you try to hide it, it almost causes them to feel a little bit less stable. And so,
Not a little bit, a lot.
yeah,
When
just
you
being
own
able,
it.
exactly, just own it. And you don't have to own it by going, like you said, into all of the details and saying, well, yeah, your dad has slept with like 4 other women, and we don't know if we're going to get divorced or not yet. No, you
Right.
can step in and say, hey, me and your dad are going through some really rough things right now. I'm trying to, like you said, I'm feeling sad, or I'm grieving some things, and I'm going to be okay. And we're going to be okay. And you know what? We're going to keep you in the loop. So if anything changes or if anything important happens, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
And
I,
and then be very sensitive, be very curious and open to them. And really, I think you need to leave the windows open. Your kids they'll kind of like come to you, and I see it as like open and closed windows. They'll be carrying all sorts of questions and
yeah.
feelings, and you want to just have an open door so that when they have a moment that feels safe enough to ask you some questions, welcome those questions and speak candidly about those things. And so, yeah, I think that's what they should do.
I think be very conscious of your heart and your intention. So if I'm going to talk to my 3 kids, if I had 3 kids, I'm going to talk to my 3 kids, I got to be careful that I'm not planting seeds and gaslighting, meaning like saying certain things to try to get them on my side of things, if we're headed toward divorce, or saying certain things to just like feel vindicated and validated in my pain, and using my children for that. But actually my intent being, I love them. I want what's best for them. And so I'm going to handle that in that way. And so just be aware of that, because if you got all those emotions, sometimes your kids are the closest people to you, and you can use them. And that's the last thing a child needs, is to be used by their parent for that. Yeah.
You're right, Brannon. That is so excruciatingly hard when you're in the thick of things and you're looking for any form of support, and especially when things haven't been fair and you want people to know like what the truth is, because you look like you're the crazy one, and it's like your kids or your family members are looking at you and going like, why is she so like upset and frustrated all the time, and she's being a bitch or whatever. And it's like, you kind of want to be able to tell the truth, but
I had that session yesterday, like this narcissistic guy, just so narcissistic and manipulative, and it's working. He's pulling his kids over to his side, and his wife to them looks like the mean, horrible person. And she's actually the one who really actually cares deeply about them, and is trying to do the right things. And so, yeah, like you were saying,
but the
Tyler.
truth is, though, is that does happen. And if you can avoid that drama, if you can check yourself and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? drama always rises to the surface and people see it for what it is.
Yes.
So if you get yourself stuck in it, then your kids will have no sure footing to stand on. If you stay out of it and you check yourself and say, I'm not going to use my children for my own emotional gain through this because they don't have the template to hold it all. That narcissistic father or whatever is pulling everyone to their side. It's not going to take very long before those kids go, oh, like it'll feel gross to them and they'll see it. And
Yeah.
it all comes to fruition pretty quickly.
Yep. Yep. They can feel love, and they can feel pride and anger and those type of things as well. So, but it could take a little while. They could get manipulated for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think, and when you say excruciating, I think it is excruciating to continue to just care for them and love them. And it's why it's so important that you got your own support on the side, that you're doing your own work on the side, so that like a therapist or a sponsor or a friend can say, you're good. Like, you are awesome. You're able to stay right here and do this, even with like all this other manipulation and stuff going on. Like, hang in there. Like, you are amazing. So you need that as you go through something like that. So, and we're talking kind of worst case scenarios here a little bit.
Sure. Absolutely. So, all right. Do you want to move on to the next question, Brannon?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This is a question for Brannon.
Okay.
Hi. I got married when I was 16. After almost 13 years of addiction, infidelity, and all-around chaos, I decided to divorce my husband. This was not an easy decision for me, and I made sure I was on solid ground before doing so. I went against my own religious morals, and as well by doing so. I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm 29, and for the first time, I am happy. My question is, what are the ground rules or important things to learn when building a new relationship? I'm very thankful for the time that you take to put these resources out.
I'm going to get a little weird here, Tyler. So hang on.
Okay. Where are we headed?
Well, we had an aunt who would attract certain type of men, and I think she even married a man that was in prison for a while. And then she'd attract a similar type of man again, and that relationship would end. And then she'd attract the same type of man again. And you look at that and you think, why? Like, what's going on there? I don't know, I have some friends or some people that I know that just attract, they got the Midas touch. Whatever they do in business or whatever, it just works, and they just kill it. And then they do it again, and they do it again. And it's like, well, are they just getting lucky over and over again? I don't think so. And the reason I bring this up, I'm talking about the law of attraction here. If you really resonate in abundance, like really truly resonate in abundance, you're going to attract that into your life. So coming back to my aunt, she was resonating in something that was attracting some type of partner into her life over and over again, right? I did an episode on this on my other podcast, and I got a lot of pushback because a lot of the women who have been betrayed were saying, don't you dare blame me, saying I attracted this into my life. And I don't blame them for their husband's doings whatsoever, period, right?
Yeah.
However, I do think this is the space, and this is what I think was uncomfortable for them. This is the space where there can be some self-reflection. How did I end up in a relationship with a person like this? How did I attract this into my life? And I was talking to a friend who had a horrible marriage, got divorced, and since her divorce, she's been pretty unhealthy. And she was saying, she's kind of like, another friend was saying to her, like, you need to self-reflect some, or else you're going to have the same results in your life. And she's like, oh, I haven't really. I haven't self-reflected. And what do you know? She keeps creating the same thing, right? So I think before we talk about boundaries that you should put in place, really examine your energy, examine how you resonate, because your energy and how you resonate is what's going to come back to you. So what faulty core beliefs have been running the show? What shame has been there? What fear has been motivating you to make certain decisions in your relationship? And if you can gain awareness of those things, you can start to challenge those things and start to let some of those things go, which then you'll resonate in a much different place and attract something much different into your life.
In essence, you basically raise the bar. And that's what I love about like the recovery process is that it's not just about getting through a betrayal trauma or overcoming an addiction or whatever. It's about becoming somebody new.
Yes.
And if you're in the process of becoming somebody new, you're naturally going to be surrounding yourself with different people that will treat you differently. And maybe those who don't necessarily like this idea of what you're talking about here, I think there's a true principle here, and it might lead into some boundaries talk too, but it's this idea that we as human beings, and this is another uncomfortable thing to have to sit with and listen to, but we as human beings, we allow ourselves to be treated right up to the same level that we believe we should be treated.
Yes, no question.
And so if I'm stuck in an abusive relationship and I don't learn to set the right boundaries, or I don't figure out how to like grow into something new, it continues to happen over and over again because I'm allowing it to, because I, in some core belief place, I'm holding on to something that's keeping me stuck. And so the best way to move into a new place is to continue your own personal recovery work and to get to where you can authentically and honestly look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm not perfect, but I really like what I see and I like where I'm going. And if you're showing up that way, it makes a difference. One little story, I'm a big fan of Zig Ziglar, and he's just got the best motivational speeches in the world, and he was talking about this idea of attitude, and it kind of goes along with the law of attraction. And he said, if you're stuck on an island with one other person and you come down with appendicitis and the other person is the only one that's available, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the person who says, oh, all is lost, I'm not a doctor, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, like, you're hosed? Or would you rather have somebody walk in and be like, I got this. This is no problem.
Grab a stick and start digging.
We're going to nail this thing. Like, every one of us is going to go with the optimist because the belief system is there. And that belief system, it reminds me of like Grandpa Harris. You remember Grandpa Harris, like how he'd like enter all of those like contests and stuff. And he'd always said he was going to win contests. And he ended up getting published in like the Reader's Digest. And he won a couple like little $20 gifts and stuff from like poems he won contests for. But he would drive around when we'd go visit him. We'd drive around the parking lot at the store, and he might have just done this just to drive a point home, but he'd drive around until we had a front row parking spot.
Well, he knew that spot was going to be there.
Yeah, he just knew he was going to get a front row parking spot, and then inevitably we'd always end up with a front row parking spot. So,
yeah.
So, but if you think about it, there really is some truth to that. I mean, Brannon, think about how many years ago we started talking about the dream we had to do retreats,
right?
And then we just kind of let it sit there, but we kept moving and kept moving on in our careers. And what was it, 5 or 6 years ago, we had the opportunity to go to Alaska and put on the best men's retreat I've ever seen.
Right.
And it's like, who would have ever thought that 10 years ago? But because it was there and because we were moving towards it, and that's where the energy was flowing, it happened.
Right. Right.
And in some ways, that's what's going to happen with your relationship. So yeah, you're right. Our aunt, she never was able to climb out of the pit because she resonated. You kept using the word resonating. I think our listeners might not be able to like understand what you're saying, but
it's the energy you put out.
You show up with a certain level of energy, and when you show up that way, you're likely to get that back.
Yes.
It's just reflective.
Right. And you'll find out quickly. So you get in a new relationship. You almost you don't need somebody to tell you, hey, here's the ground rules. Because you'll naturally, like what Tyler said, I forget how you said it, but I love how you said it. You'll be boundaried up to the level that you love yourself, basically, is what you said.
Yeah.
What'd you say it? How'd you say it?
I said that we allow ourselves to be treated right up to the level that we believe we're worthy of being treated.
Yeah. And so in that statement means that naturally you're going to show up in that relationship, and that relationship will either die or that relationship will either thrive. And if you love yourself, if you're showing up in self-acceptance, not arrogance, not pride, but self-acceptance, self-love, then you're going to attract a partner who wants you to love yourself, who loves you, doesn't want to use you and consume you. And so when you have those boundaries and you're being authentic in those boundaries because you love yourself, they're going to be saying rah, 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 like heck freaking yeah. And vice versa. You'll be doing the same. You'll be wanting to empower them to be them because you want them to be confident and love themselves. And then where you collide, you'll be able to work that out and communicate and connect and have intimacy. And so, this is like the basis of a healthy relationship. I posted something on Instagram this week, and it was, you can't manipulate yourself into real connection. And my analogy was, if you're trying to create connection without authenticity, it's like trying to make peanut butter without peanuts. It's nuts. But if you're showing up, if you love yourself, the shame's not running the show, then you're going to show up authentic. You're going to attract an authentic person. You're going to empower each other, and you're going to feel love. And I make that sound so simple, but it's not that simple. There's a lot to sort through in order to resonate in that way. So,
right, exactly. I think, Brannon, everything you're saying is spot on. It's weird to say that the more that you continue to work on yourself, the more you set yourself up for success in your next relationship.
yeah.
With that said, I think the learning that you probably are doing, if you've been in recovery for a while, you've probably learned about attachment styles. You're going to take that knowledge into your dating life. You've learned about shame and how shame shows up in relationships. You're going to take that knowledge into your dating life. And there's some things that I think a lot of people do because when we've gone through something like a divorce, it's that in and of itself is traumatic. It can't help but be. And so oftentimes we say we're never going to want to be with somebody again, but I can't tell you how many times someone will sit in my office one week and be like, I'm never getting in a relation again. And then all of a sudden 2 weeks later, they're showing up in my office saying, hey, here's my fiance. And I'm like, what just happened? And I think being able to slow down and realize that it's okay to do some due diligence when you're dating someone. You're going to want to get yourself in all sorts of different situations with them. And you're going to want to do some things that most people don't do. There's a really powerful statistic here that nobody ever wants to pay attention to. And, we have a divorce rate right now that's higher than 50% in America. And it's even higher than that with second marriages. And there's a statistic that says that if couples will go and do premarital counseling before they actually get married, it basically kills that percentage.
Yeah.
They don't get divorced. But we're so Twitter-pated, and we want to believe so much about this person that everything's just going to be perfect and based on love. And the truth is that love that lasts is more than infatuation. Love that lasts is the ability to talk about big things like sexual intimacy and money and religion. And you might as well do that stuff before you get married again.
And learn how to do it.
Yeah, and learn how to do it. Go get some help and learn how to do it, so that when you step into the marriage, you just hit the ground running and you go, okay, like I knew what this was when I picked it up.
Yep.
Just like that old video where the Indian brave runs to the top of the mountain and And he gets to the top, there's a rattlesnake up there. Then he says, "Hey, I'm really, really cold. Can you give me a ride back down where it's warmer?" And the brave says, "No, I can't." And he says, "Please, just give me a ride down." And then he says, "Okay." He picks up the rattlesnake and he runs all the way back down to the bottom of the mountain. And as he gets to set the snake down on the mountain, the snake is warmed up and he turns around and bites him. And as the Indian brave is laying on the ground, wondering what just happened and why life isn't fair, the snake says, "You knew what I was when you picked me up." You
Right.
know, and it's like, well, you might as
I feel like I'm right back in Sunday school.
yeah. Some people remember that video they made, you know, that old video. But there's some truth to that. Like, you might as well make sure you know what you're picking up before you just go jump into another relationship. And the way that you do that is by having shared experiences, having some different settings, and having some hard conversations, so that you kind of know sort of how your partner is going to respond to certain things, and also where they stand on certain issues and feelings.
Yeah.
Not to say things won't change, but that's important.
I think I think there's rubber meets the road moments. So it's like you've been in an old relationship. Let's say in that relationship, your partner would take advantage of you sexually, would make fun of you, push certain limits, not do any chores, just kind of take advantage of you. Okay. And then you do your own work, you get educated, you go to therapy, you know what being boundaried, healthily boundaries actually means. But there's still those rubber meets the road moments. And those moments are when you actually practice the courage enough to experience what it's like to deal with the fear that you might get abandoned if you're honest and if you're authentic. And the more you practice that, the more you're going to realize, oh my gosh, this creates healthy relationships. I like this. But it takes stepping through that. Let's say that your new relationship, they start pushing limits sexually. And if you know, gosh, I know this isn't healthy, this isn't what I want to do, but I don't want to disappoint him, and you're going back to your old ways. But if you step into saying, that doesn't work for me right now, and I'd like to talk to you about that, you're showing up much differently. And now your partner is going to respond by either loving the authentic you or rejecting you. But then they're not going to be who you attract into your life.
That's the best rejection you'll ever experience.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think we've answered that question, Tyler.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. They can always get back on and ask more, please. So.
All right, you guys, I just want to say thank you to those who submitted these questions today. And we'd love some more in-person live guests on the show. So have some courage, come on. We're here to help you. And like Tyler said at the beginning of this episode, the last guest that we had actually helped a lot of other people by being vulnerable and willing to come on. So we invite you on. Please rate and review the podcast. Go over to iTunes. We need more ratings. We need more reviews. They're always helpful. So please just take a few minutes and hop on over there and let us know what you think about our podcast. And have a wonderful day. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, guys.